Hey guys, Troy here, back with another video today. I'm really excited to bring you guys the 4 NBA players I'm looking to target right now during this dip in modern basketball. One of the biggest pieces of advice I give here on this channel is don't overreact. Zig when others zag, and I think what's going on right now is the perfect, example of that. Vintage is so hot, the GOATs are so hot, and rightfully so, but I think when everyone's attention is elsewhere, there's opportunity where not as many people are looking. None of the players I'm sharing are, groundbreaking predictions or names no one's ever heard of. If you want some real under the radar type stuff, I think that's better to do on Star Stock. So I have a video talking about that, but these are some big names who I think are really undervalued right now, and you'll have a great opportunity to flip or hold or whatever you want to do towards the NBA playoffs. And the first player that I'm personally going to be targeting is Jamal Murray. It feels like ages ago because of the way our memories work and everything, but this guy went absolutely insane in the bubble. There was conversations of, is this guy legitimately one of the top weapons, the top offensive scorers in the entire NBA? Him, along with Jokic, led the Nuggets to the Western Conference Finals. They were one of the top 2 teams in the West. And yes, they did lose to the Lakers, but that's a very strong team. But they beat the Jazz, they beat the Clippers, and it's still a really strong team. They have the same kind of core, the same kind of players from last year, so I don't see any reason they won't at least make some sort of playoff run this year. Now, to be fair, Jamal Murray has not had maybe the season we all expected. Some people expected him to really take that next step and carry on straight from the bubble, looking like one of the top players in the league. I think that was always going to be tough, but yes, I have to concede, we could have maybe seen a little bit more from him so far, but he's still averaging near 20 points per game. I think he will step it up. He's kind of getting into the groove here. But yes, he hasn't been perfect, but that kind of takes me into his card prices. I'm not sure we should see as steep of a decline as we have seen. If you look at the chart of his Prism base PSA 10 here, he's lost more than 50% of his value from the bubble and also even just from the beginning of this NBA season. He's the same price that he was back in May of last year before the sports card and basketball card market exploded. And you'll see a similar trend with the rest of the guys and the rest of the graphs, but I just feel like there's a real opportunity here with Murray. And just to get one thing in real quick too, I don't know if he's going to be able to replicate what he did in the last bubble. But one thing I do know is the Nuggets playoff success and his playoff success last year is going to be factored into his price in some regard once this year's playoffs are about to start. So I would just be very surprised if his price doesn't rise once we get close. And then at that point, it's up to you whether you want to take the gamble of, am I going to hold and see if he can replicate what he did last year? Or am I going to get out and take the profit because his prices have already went up? The next player is Anthony Davis of the Los Angeles Lakers. This guy is an NBA champion coming off a great performance. He's had some injury issues this year with his Achilles. There was even some talk coming into the season of him being a potential MVP candidate with LeBron maybe not playing as many games, kind of resting himself, getting ready for the playoffs. That unfortunately hasn't happened. I don't think we're going to see that from Anthony Davis this particular year, but this guy is an absolute star. He's an NBA champion now, and I think he has one of the best chances out of anyone to add another NBA championship to his resume once this season concludes. And if you look at his chart here, he's once again not a full 50% off from his peak, but really far down. If you can also see, there was kind of that big dip and he's already moved up a little bit. I think people are starting to realize, wait a minute, if I'm trying to bet on the NBA playoffs or the championship, what better card to hold than Anthony Davis? And I think that's you're already seeing it a little bit in his chart. I don't think it's too late, but that's gonna carry over to some of these other guys I'm gonna mention here pretty soon. But Anthony Davis, once again, I think he's great if you wanna, bet on someone having some success in the playoffs. And once again, he's one of these guys where next year, granted, hopefully the whole sports card market doesn't fall apart, he'll be in just as good of a position next year where he's someone with at least one NBA championship, maybe even 2, and he's in a position once again to contend for another and be an absolute star on that team. So as one of the safer bets to kind of invest in during this dip, I have to go with Anthony Davis. The next one, kind of in the vein of Jamal Murray, is another bubble superstar, and that is Donovan Mitchell. He absolutely tore it up in the bubble last year, and to be 100% frank, I'm not sure how big of a fan I am of Donovan Mitchell. I was hesitant to buy his cards early, still a little hesitant now, but he's very, very exciting. He's a great scorer, and more importantly than that, I don't know how we all just decided to forget the Utah Jazz are #1 in the West right now. And I also think they care about that seed so much more than the Lakers. So I would not be surprised at all to see the Utah Jazz finish as the #1 seed in the Western Conference. And that would be absolutely huge for Donovan Mitchell and that team. And it's not just the Jazz who have been playing well. Donovan Mitchell has been playing very, very good this year, putting up great numbers. I think he's gonna be in the All-Star game. He's been playing as good as everyone. And if we look at his chart, he hasn't seen, he's not 50% discount like some of these other guys, but considering how well he's been playing, I would expect his cards to have gone way, way up. And if you see at the very tail end, his Prism PSA 10 has gone up, but almost always, guys, when that happens, the cards don't all rise at once together. Usually it is like the Prism base PSA 10, that goes first. But if you do your research and you really educate yourself, you'll be able to find some great Donovan Mitchell opportunities. There's some great cards there. I just picked up one, so stay tuned. That's gonna be in the next mail day. But once again, let me reiterate, I'm not 100% sold on Donovan Mitchell, not 100% sold on the Jazz. I mean, being a legit championship contender, but once again, if they finish as the #1 seed, that possibility has to be factored in. I think there's gonna be a ton of people excited about Donovan Mitchell, and I think we will see a price increase. So that's something I'm taking a little bit of a gamble on. Now, if you thought the first 3 picks were a little bit too mainstream, you're really not gonna like this one. But there's a reason for that. If all modern NBA players are basically half off right now, where would you wanna take advantage of that the most? You wanna buy the best players there are. And there's no better example of that than Giannis Antetokounmpo. I'm not even gonna waste my breath explaining to you guys who this guy is. 2-time MVP, playing really well this year. I talked about it a little bit before, but Bill Simmons actually had a great point. He's like, he can't win the MVP again because he's got it the last 2 times. So it's kind of like we all collectively agreed that we're just gonna ignore Giannis's production this year. But once again, he is a 2-time MVP. He's only 26 years old. And I don't love the Bucks situation he's in, but it's a solid team. And as with all of these, one thing I always reiterate, there's always a risk, there's always a flaw, there's always a bet in a sense, but if I'm gonna take that chance, it would be on a guy like Giannis in the Bucks to figure it out. Because if you look at his chart here, I think he's over 50% off from his peak, and with him, with Anthony Davis, with Donovan Mitchell, with Jamal Murray, no one knows for sure where the market is gonna go. But I would just be surprised if these teams that are in playoff contention and have these star players, if just no one ever gets excited. The chart goes like this towards the playoffs and then just down. I really do think we are gonna see a gradual rise. And I'm not saying he's gonna get all the way up to that peak he was at, but I do think he will break out of this plateau at some point. And like him, with all of them, you don't necessarily have to believe in their individual team, but the hype, the excitement, the sports betting aspect that's gonna happen when the NBA playoffs start is gonna be huge to me. So with all these guys, these are kind of the 4 best names who haven't seen that, that GOAT type rise. Obviously Kevin Durant, LeBron are gonna be probably the most relevant players when the playoffs start, but their cards have already gone to the moon. So where can we put our attention where there's still opportunity? And I think these 4 guys are great bets. But all right, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. We're trying to get to 5K subscribers. That's a huge milestone I would love to hit. So if you could support in any way, I'd really appreciate it. And we're gonna keep the videos coming. Thanks again.